Hey guys, what's going on? It's Ryan. Just wanted to do a quick video here. I had a couple guys reaching out. They were saying they were interested in learning some more repair work, and this is you know, kind of a simple repair. I wouldn't consider this a hard repair. We're just going to be rebuilding a Jandy valve today, just basically taking out the old O-rings and putting it back together and not damaging it in the process. Okay, let's get into it, guys. So you can see here when I roll up to this pump, there's no water in the pot. The pump is off. It's been probably sitting overnight, at least for, 8 hours or so, and there's just no water in there. So that's a pretty good sign that there's a leak somewhere. Usually you're going to find leaks at all the O-rings, which I'm pointing out right now, or the PVC joints, maybe with the cement, the PVC cement has failed. So those are going to be your most common culprits. Okay, so I don't remember what's going on here. I think I'm starting the pump up to get it to prime up and get it full of water and to see if I can actually see the leak. Because a lot of times when you get the pump primed back up, you purge all the air out of the filter. You can actually spot a leak by just looking at the pot, turning the pump off, looking at the pot, and you can see the water level go down like a little bubble at a time. I didn't see that in this case because it's a really slow leak, but I have seen it in the past on this pool. It just doesn't happen very often, and I didn't want to sit there for 10 minutes to see it, bubble up and leak. So here I am spraying the water out, getting it purged, and getting it all primed up so I can check it. And another trick you can do too is, especially with a single speed pump, is you can do the same procedure, turn it on, get it primed up, get the pot full of water, and then kick that single speed pump off, and then you will actually see water squirt back out wherever the leak is. So if you have a Jandy valve leak, you'll see water squirt out of there. And another thing you can do too is after you turn the pump back off, you can listen with your ear. Just put your ear up real close to the plumbing, and you can actually hear where the air is coming out because all the pressure is built up inside the plumbing and inside the filter, and that pressure is trying to force its way out, and it's going to force its way out through the leak. And that was actually how I identified this leak, was I used my ear and just put it right up next to that Jandy valve, and I could hear it leaking out. So here you can see the bubbles that I'm talking about. Basically what I did was I cracked the lid just a tiny bit to create a leak, and you can see those bubbles. You can see the water in the pot is just slowly going down and slowly filling up with air. So that's a telltale sign that there's a leak somewhere. But this leak in the Jandy valve was so slow, it wasn't causing it to go down quick enough. But overnight, with the pump sitting, it did go down to the point where it was having a hard prime. And when it does that, day in and day out, it's going to cause other problems. The pump's going to get really hot, and you could potentially create a discharge leak and just some other issues. So you want to get it taken care of. Here I'm taking out the screws of the Jandy valve, and a lot of guys will say not to use a power tool on this, but the truth is I don't have time to sit here with a manual screwdriver and take that off. So there's some tricks to be careful with it, which I'll show you when we put it back on. But go ahead and use a power screwdriver, power drill to take it off. It's a lot easier that way. And usually you can just shake it by the handle and just rock it back and forth, and you can get this to pop free and break the seal and come out. But if you don't, get yourself a big pair of channel locks, which you saw just a minute ago, and you can put those channel locks right on the faceplate only, and then use that to pull the faceplate off with the handle. Of course, you always want to be careful because you can definitely damage these faceplates if they're really old and sun rotted, and you put a pair of channel locks on there, or you get too aggressive with the screwdriver, you could crack that faceplate. And that turns it into a much more expensive job. All I'm doing is replacing the O-rings, which are maybe $1 or $2, but if you got to go buy a faceplate, your parts are going to go up to like 15 bucks. So go ahead and take your handle off. You basically just take that little screw out of the middle out, slide the handle right off, and then from here you can see the O-ring on the faceplate right there. This one is kind of worn and cracked. You probably can't see it on the video, but that's where the leak is. So I'm going to take that off. We're going to toss it and it's a little bit difficult with one hand. As you can tell, I got the camera in my left hand and I'm using my right hand to work, but I'm managing here, and I'm just going to throw that down and get the rest of it taken apart. Just push it through the center right there. You'll find two little O-rings on the shaft part, which I just threw down in there. I'm sure I'm going to grab that in a minute, but let's see, right there, there's the shaft. See those two O-rings? You're going to slide those off and replace those. So this job, guys, it took me about 15 minutes or so, because I was basically working with one hand, which you don't think is very hard, but it's actually a little bit harder than you would intend. So if I had both of my hands and all my tools there, this job would take about 3 or 4 minutes, and it's pretty high dollar as far as like per hour goes. You can see me cleaning the seal area where that O-ring is going to sit with a rag. I don't want any gunk in there, because even if you put a new O-ring on there, if you have a massive piece of debris or gunk or something, you won't get a good seal on it. But going back to what I was saying, this is something that is not easy for the homeowner to do themselves, and so it's pretty common that they're going to want you to do this job, and that's something that you're going to want to charge a pretty good amount for. If it's something really simple, like you can see here the part number for the O-ring kit. But anyways, if it's something really simple, like you're just replacing a skimmer basket or putting in a new floater, from my experience, I've found customers don't really like to get charged a lot of money for that. They kind of get upset because they think, well, I can just do that myself. Why is he charging me $35 for a skimmer basket? I can get that on Amazon for $10. But this is something they can't do themselves, and it's pretty easy for you to do because you do it all the time, but it's really difficult for the customer. So this is something you want to charge some good amount of money for. It's just like a plumber. A plumber is going to charge a lot of money for sweating off an old hose bib and then putting on a new one with solder and everything. It's really easy for them to do that, but the homeowner, it's really difficult. You might spend $200 or $250 for that, but it's going to take the plumber $10 in parts, if even that, and they'll have it done in less than 15 minutes. And it's kind of the same deal. You need to charge a good amount of money for your experience and your knowledge, because that's what they're paying you for. They're not paying you to replace O-rings here. They're paying you to diagnose the issue and to fix it, and that's where you're going to make your money. But you see the lube that I'm putting on there. The Jandy valve actually says never lube on it, but that doesn't mean you can't put lube on it. That just means that they market it as a never lube, maintenance-free valve. For the most part, it is, but they don't last forever, and I like to put a little lube on it because I think the lube helps it to last longer. So that's what I'm doing here, just lubing everything up real good, and then I'm putting that diverter valve back in there. And then you got to make sure when you're putting this back on, you got to find your inlet, which I'm pointing at right there, and you got to face that towards the pump. That's important. All right, you can see in just a minute that I'm going to put the handle back on and test that inlet to make sure it's stopping, because you don't want to be able to close the suction off on that inlet pipe when that pump is on. So basically those two little tabs there on the faceplate stop that from happening. As you rotate the handle around, those tabs will catch it and you can't go any further. This handle's actually broken. I didn't realize that until I started doing this video, so I'll have to get them a new handle to prevent them from cutting off the flow to the pump completely. Okay, when you're putting these screws back in, you're gonna actually let's go to the handle real quick. When you go to put this handle on, you can only put it on one way. You can see the tabs. If you try to put it on wrong, you're not going to be able to get it on there. And that's kind of nice, because sometimes you'll see a handle just laying on the side and you don't know what the orientation of that valve is, but you can take that handle off the ground and put it back on the valve itself, and you can see where it is, because you can't get that handle on any other way than the correct way. So knowing that, you could come up to a set of equipment and you could find a handle laying on the ground and you don't know where the heck that diverter valve is inside the valve. You don't want to take it apart, and you don't have to. Just grab the valve, handle, put it on there, the only way it'll go, and then you can see where that diverter valve is inside the Jandy valve. Right there I'm showing you the broken tabs on the handle, which I need to replace. And then when you put on these screws, you're going to want to do it in a star pattern, just like you're changing a wheel on your tire on your car. And then when you tighten it down, you're going to want to do the same thing. All right, got my gun. It's really important you turn this down. You don't want to be using your your screwdriver here, your drill, on the highest setting. So I'm turning it down to the lowest setting, and I'm going to start screwing it in. And even though it's on the lowest setting, I'm really going to go real slow with it, because you don't want to screw that thing in with a lot of torque, because if you do, you're going to crack that faceplate. And if you crack a faceplate, you're going to have a leak. So now you got to go replace the faceplate, which you don't want to have to deal with. So you can see I'm just tightening it down in a star pattern, just crisscrossing back and forth. And I'm not going all the way down. I'm just, seating them to that torque setting. And then I'll come back around and I'll do it again on a little bit higher torque setting. And then what I end up doing at the end is I finish it off just by hand. So this is actually a different style video for me. I don't normally do a voiceover like this, but in this case, the customer is always home and they're on the other side of that wall there. There's actually a window. They probably are possibly watching me this whole time. I don't know if they were, if they weren't, but I didn't want to be talking out there right across the wall from them, telling them how you should be charging a bunch of money for a job like this. I just didn't want, that wasn't information for them. That's information for the pool industry. So I had to do a voiceover in this situation, but hopefully it works out. Hopefully you guys like it and you learned something. If you have any questions or whatever, go ahead and comment below, and I'll do my best to address those questions for you. All right, just about got this faceplate on, and then we're gonna prime it up here pretty soon, and we'll be good to go in just a minute here. This is probably a good time for me to reach out again and ask you guys if you have any interest in specific videos or content. Let me know, because I don't really do this full time. This is just kind of like a little side thing. I actually started this channel as a way to train my employees back in the day when I had quite a few employees. I just got sick and tired of explaining the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And I was like a broken record. So I finally said, you know what, I'm going to put up some YouTube videos, and anytime the situation comes up, I'm just going to text the technician the YouTube video and say, hey, check this out, and then call me if you have any questions after that. But of course they didn't do that. I even provided them a folder with like common diagnostic stuff. All the steps when you have a pump that won't prime or a salt cell that's not producing chlorine. Check these steps first, and then watch the video, and then if you still have some issues, you're still struggling, give me a call and I'll be happy to help. Well, of course, that's not how it all went down. They would call me first thing and I'd say, hey, would you check to see if the time clock was turning on the salt cell the same time the pump's turning on, or are they turning on at different times? Oh, I didn't check that. Yeah, why don't you check that and call me back? And while you're at it, why don't you watch the video and check the checklist I gave you in your folder, and then call me if you can't figure it out. Okay, Ryan, I'll do that. But no, I'm not bitter. You can tell I'm not bitter at all, right? I don't know what it is. A lot of these guys, I don't know, they just want to collect a check or something, because you pretty much, spoon feed them and hold their hand, and they still just can't figure it out, and you're basically doing it for them, and you're trying to figure out why you're paying them. And, there's just not many guys out there that are going to take the initiative with all the tools you give them and make it happen. So, and I don't want you guys to think that I was expecting my service technicians to be very knowledgeable in diagnostic stuff, but they needed to do some basic stuff. And if the pump won't prime, then check the pump lid O-ring. Is the weir door stuck? Did the customer change the valves? I mean, it's pretty simple to just follow a checklist, and if you can't figure it out, then give me a call. Okay, another one in the books. That one's all done, mission accomplished. And I'm curious what you guys think I charge for this, and I'm curious what you guys would charge for something like this. So that's gonna wrap it up. I'll talk to you guys later, and let me know if there's anything else you guys want to see.